Now, this is where Disney legend and retired Imagineer Bob Gurr joins the show each and every week to answer your questions and mine. Now, if you don't know what Bob has designed in Walt Disney World and Disneyland, well, let me tell you, he's designed the original monorails on both coasts, the dune buggies, the Main Street vehicles, the submarines, the People Mover, the Autopia, the Matterhorn. I'm looking around my office at all the things that he designed. If you have a question for Bob, I'd love for you to call the voice line 267-551-1971, or you could always email it to me at phil@eartotheretravel.com. And just like every week, the What About Bob segment is brought to you by the Waltland Bus Tour. So each month, Bob Gurr takes a group, well, actually, he doesn't drive, but he narrates the tour for a group of lucky Disney fans. The bus goes all over Southern California with stops in Los Angeles, in Burbank, and in Glendale, where you'll see all of the famous spots and sites in the history of the Disney company, but more importantly, in the life and history of its founder, Walt Disney. To get tickets for the Waltland Bus Tour, just head over to www.waltland.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here he is, Bob Gurr.
It's What About Bob? Bob Gurr, the legend, creator of the Matterhorn, the monorails and the Haunted Mansion. What about Bob, the Disney legend?
So, Bob, this one is from me, actually. Was there ever a project that you wanted to do or you were going to do a certain way, but it didn't work out and you had to completely do a 180 on it and go in a completely different direction?
No. Walt was smart enough to ask his folks to design stuff that had never been done before, but not ask you to go so far that it would get into a situation like that. It's like saying, if he asks you to do 100% of what you've done before, well, that's routine. If he asks you to do something 110% of what you've done before, well, now you got some extra thinking you got to do. But he wouldn't be a guy that would send you out and say, do 150 or 200% of what we've done before, because you knew doggone well that may sputter and that may backfire and you may have to completely retreat and do something another way. So at least for Walt, that was his basic overall smarts about go really far out, but never too far out.
It's remarkable, Bob, to me, the stuff that you were tasked to do by Walt himself that had never been done. And you say, just hearing you say, he knew, how much to give you when he comes into your office and says, hey, Bob, build the first monorail in the Western Hemisphere, or build a tubular steel roller coaster that's never been done before. Like, to me, that seems like that's 200% more than you've ever done, but it's not.
No, I don't think so, because Walt had a pretty good feel for what people could do. It was kind of an uncanny way. That always kind of puzzled me, because it was kind of his secret weapon. Like, he understood the psyche of people, whether he knew them well or not. And it always paid off, because a lot of times a person would be asked by him to do something they'd never done, and they kind of startled them. But it was quite obvious that he asked you to do it. Well, by golly, you're going to do it. And then you'd find out, gosh, I did do it. I'd never done that before. So you got a confidence level of every time he engaged people in a new project that it was probably going to work, because the batting average would get so good.
Yeah.
That's the best way I could put it. I think at the time, like, let's say the monorail, I had never seen that kind of a configuration of what we call German saddlebag, where the monorail is like a loaf of bread with a slot in the bottom sitting on a stick. But remember, it's a piece of mechanical structure. It's got wheels on the top, wheels on the side. It's got electrical propulsion. So right away, you know an awful lot about it. You just take a look at a picture of it, or a couple of mechanical documents of how the Allway company had done it. And since I'd already fiddled around with cars since I was a kid, I worked on cars in the auto shop, rebuilt my own engines, I'd look at junkyards to get parts so I could see how things are built. And, general curiosity about vehicles on the road, like big trucks, transit mixed trucks, things with big tires. I knew how axles worked. So right away, I could see a whole bunch of parts we're going to need. And at the same time, I knew how we could source those because, they're on the road every day. We got manufacturers and parts sellers all around the place. And it was also quite obvious that, it's electrical propulsion. Well, they usually use 600 volt DC. Oh, well, that's like old streetcars of the 1930s. Oh, we could probably buy a bunch of parts like that, which we did. So it wasn't like starting from ground zero. It was like adopting standardized parts that we could collect and modify a little bit, stick them all together, and we actually had, say, a suspension, running gears, side wheels, DC motors, and all that sort of stuff. That's all stock stuff that you can just go out and buy. And then you combine that into a body structure of the shape that you want, the interior you want, the styling you want. I also knew how people build race cars. I'd seen how the metal shaping is done. All of this because it's observation of how stuff works, how people build stuff. So that's why the monorail went very, very quickly. And I know as I look back, when people ask me about, well, how did he specify exactly what he wants? Well, I made the drawing of the appearance of it because I could see, something like that would really work. And then when he came over to look at the drawing, he just sort of tapped it and he said, well, Bobby, can you actually build that? And I just said, well, sure. And he looked around at my boss and a couple other people and said, well, okay. He walked away. He did not at any time specify exactly what he wanted. He did this with people. He trusts your sense of what would fit his idea. And that sort of was the clue. He had to have the people that could kind of understand what he wanted while he didn't tell you exactly.
That was easily my favorite answer that Bob has ever given on the show. I didn't specifically go into a Walt Disney question, but he kind of swung it that way. I just love hearing those stories. I love hearing the firsthand accounts of Bob's experiences of working with Walt, and it's just amazing to get to hear those stories in person, and I'm so happy to get to share them with you. So thank you, Bob, and thank you so much for listening. It's crazy. I'm a lucky person, like crazy lucky to be able to hear these stories from a guy who is a legend and a genius, but also worked alongside one of the visionaries of modern times. It's just an incredible thing, and I'm so lucky. Anyway, I had to gush for a second.